For 10 years I lived for one thing, to see the fear in his eyes before I killed him. Today was the day, but he had one last secret that would change everything. The wind howled across the desolate canyon, a lonely sound that matched the emptiness in Red's soul. For a decade, this moment had been his only compass. The bounty hunter tightened his grip on the worn stock of his Winchester, his knuckles white. Below, in the shadow of the rust-colored mesas, smoke curled from the chimney of a dilapidated shack. Jack the Viper Malone, the man who had murdered his family, the man he was about to send to hell. Red moved with a predator's silence, his breath pluming in the cold air. He kicked the door open, the wood splintering inward, and there he was, older, grayer, but with the same cruel eyes, sitting by a feeble fire. Jack didn't reach for his gun. He just smiled, a thin, terrible smile. "Red Dillon, took you long enough. Make your peace, Jack." Red's voice was gravel, his rifle steady. "There ain't none to be made for the likes of you or me." "But before you do it," Jack said, his gaze unwavering, "I got a daughter. She's all that's left to me in this world. She's in the root cellar." Red's aim didn't falter, but a crack formed in his resolve. "A child? Here? You're lying." Jack's final laugh was a dry rattle. "See for yourself. Then decide what kind of man you really are." I went into that cellar expecting another one of his lies. I didn't expect to find a pair of eyes that mirrored my own dead son's. The root cellar was a pit of darkness, smelling of damp earth and decay. Red descended cautiously, his pistol now in hand. Moonlight sliced through the slats above, illuminating a small huddled form in the corner, wrapped in a threadbare blanket. It was a girl, no more than 6 or 7. She didn't cry or whimper. She just stared at him with enormous, hollow eyes that held a silence deeper than any he had ever known. They were the same shade of blue as his Billy's. In that instant, the shack, the chase, the burning need for vengeance, it all melted into a distant roar. Here was the innocent consequence of the monster he hunted. If he killed Jack upstairs, what then? Leave her to rot? Take her to a town that would only see her as a viper's spawn? The little girl flinched as he took a step closer, and Red's heart, long frozen by grief, gave a painful, thawing lurch. He was a man who dealt in death, but he was not a man who could orphan a child. Not again. Not like this. The mission was over. A new, more complicated one had begun. I was a bounty hunter, not a father. But on the long road home, I learned that saving a life can be a sharper revenge than taking one. The journey back to his remote homestead was a silent 3-day trial. The girl, who he learned was named Lily, didn't speak a word. She simply followed, her small hand sometimes tentatively finding his. Red, whose world had been defined by ledgers of debt and death, now found himself worrying about blisters on small feet and if the berries he'd gathered were safe to eat. He told her stories of the land, of the constellations his wife had taught him, filling the silence with words he hadn't spoken in years. At night, when she was shaken by nightmares, he would sit by her bedroll, humming an old tune he thought he'd forgotten. The burning image of Jack Malone's face began to fade, replaced by the slow, trusting blink of Lily's eyes. He hadn't just taken her from that cellar, he had taken himself back from the brink. He sent a letter to the sheriff, not claiming a bounty, but stating that Jack Malone was dead and his case closed. It wasn't a lie. The man Red had been was gone too. He was building something new from the ashes, something that felt, for the first time in a decade, like a future.
I thought my debt was paid, but the past has a way of tracking you down, and it came for us wearing a familiar, cruel smile. A year later, the homestead was alive with the sound of laughter. Lily was tending a small patch of wildflowers she'd planted, her voice now a constant, cheerful presence. Red watched from the porch, a sense of peace settling in his bones. It was a peace shattered by the sight of a lone rider approaching. The man was lean and hard, with a star on his chest and a familiar cold glint in his eye. It was Eli, Jack Malone's brother. "Heard a strange story, Dylan," Eli said, not bothering to dismount. "Heard you let my brother go. Heard you're raising his whelp." His eyes drifted to Lily, and his lip curled. "That there is Malone blood. I'm here to collect what's left of my family." Red stepped forward, placing himself squarely between Eli and the girl. The old fury ignited within him, but it was different now. Cleaner, protective. "She's not your blood," Red said, his voice low and deadly calm. "She's my daughter. You take one step toward her, and the bounty I'll be collecting today will be yours." In that standoff, Red realized his true debt wasn't to the past, it was to the future, and he was ready to pay it in full.